I'm going to call this episode something like How to Make Difficult Music Easy. And if I do that, admittedly, that's just a little bit clickbaity because we're going to talk about the Firebird Suite Flute excerpt by Igor Stravinsky. And I will say that once you finish watching this episode, it's still going to be difficult, but it will be a lot easier. The first strategy is to use your practice tools. This is one of our best practice tools. This is my metronome, Dr. Beat. And in fact, I did an entire episode already on the Firebird Suite. Dr. Beat versus the Firebird is what it's called. And we talk in that episode about something I call terraced metronome practice. It is the single greatest, most organized way I have ever found to practice with metronome. If you have not watched that episode, I would go watch it right now, then come back and watch the rest of this episode. But keep your other practice tools in mind as well. Things like using your tuner, using an abacus, the way that you organize your time and practice with discipline. Those are all practice tools that will help you make hard music easy. There are two other strategies we're going to talk about today to make this difficult piece of music easier. One is to always know your fingering options. Don't feel roped into difficult fingerings and not explore any other options. And you do need to collect a knowledge of all the options you have over the course of playing the flute for several years, but there are many alternate fingerings, many little fingering tricks that can help make music easier. We will encounter several of those in the Firebird. I'll show you each of these as we go through the excerpt so that you know exactly what I'm talking about. The third strategy we're going to discuss today is more elusive. Let's call it, I guess, unleashing the power of your mind, something dramatic like that. It's where you shift the way that you're looking at something that was difficult, and just that shift of looking at it in a different way makes it feel easier. Every musician who's put in a good number of practice sessions knows what I'm talking about. It's purely in your mind, but suddenly the patterns feel easier. Suddenly there's something that clicks into place and does not feel as difficult. Let's dive right in and look at this excerpt and talk about these three strategies. The first thing is, of course, start at half tempo, use the method of terraced metronome practice. I'm not really going to talk about that today because it's in that terraced metronome practice episode, but start at half tempo and work your way up to that final tempo of dotted quarter note equals 76 very slowly and carefully. As you're practicing under tempo, when you start at half tempo, you have the perfect opportunity to put every single last detail into this piece of music. Do every crescendo, every marked articulation, all the dynamics. Be so careful about rhythm because this is an extremely rhythmic excerpt, as so many of them are. I'll feel better if I mention these aren't all my own ideas. Many of them are, but I studied with a lot of great teachers, and I want to give especially a nod to Michel Debost because a lot of these little tricks came from him. The first trick that we come across is in the third measure, and this is where we unleash the power of your mind. If you look at that high D sharp to A, that is an awkward interval. Well, guess what? We have that same interval, the second to bottom line of this same page. It's the same figure, but we have an E flat to an A instead of a D sharp to an A. And every flutist I've ever encountered feels that it's much easier to think of going E flat to A than D sharp to A. Who knows why? But everyone agrees with me. So in that third measure, just tell yourself that is an E flat, it's not a D sharp. The second opportunity that we have to employ one of our tricks is right after number 12. The second measure of 12, we have an A to an E with this fortissimo, sforzando there. And this is a place where if you play the A and then as you finger the E, you lift off your right hand fourth finger, that right hand pinky, the E will pop right out. If you don't lift that, the E may overblow to the A. The downbeat 2 measures later, you do the exact same thing. And if you don't know why lifting your pinky when you go from that A to the E makes the E just pop right out, watch my episode that's called High Note Hacks. I talk about this interval and why on the flute it makes so much difference to lift that pinky. This is the $1 million trick that's worth watching this entire episode for if this is the only thing you get out of it. When you get to number 13, you have these very awkward E octaves. When you have the D octaves just like this at number 12, it's not an issue because going from the low D to the middle D, you have to lift up your first finger and that middle D just pops out. Well, with these E's, we can try to do it all with our air and our embouchure, but that makes it very difficult. We have to go fast here. So people struggle a lot with these octaves. It's hard to control when you're going fast. This trick will save you when you're playing this excerpt. Instead of just trying to do it with your air and your embouchure, add your second trill key, the trill key that's farthest away from your face, for the middle octave E. It will act as an octave button and it will push you up to the middle octave. You don't have to change a thing other than that finger. It works very quickly and efficiently. There you go, you're welcome. We have another mind trick next. The measure before 14, you have an awkward rhythm. You have 4 30-second notes and then a series of triplets, and it can be very awkward to count. Here is the greatest trick. Thank you, Mr. DeBost. He gave me this one. Think of the first low D as being a grace note. Tell yourself it's a grace note, and then it leads into a series of triplets. So instead of da 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 da, you have ba da 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 da. It's much simpler, and you're going so fast, nobody will ever know that you made that change. And now you have experienced the power of the mind. Here's another detail that it took me a while of playing this excerpt to add. The measure before 17, you have a slightly awkward thing with E's and A's again. You're not going down to an E from an A though, you're going up to the A from an E. I still find it helps me to get that last high A to pop out if the E right before it does not have your right hand forefinger down, and when you go to the A, you add it. What I personally like to do is when I start this page and play that E, I have my pinky down, I lift it for the low A, I leave it off for the middle E, I put it back down for the high A. I used to have worries about if those 4 notes would all come out being crystal clear, but this little bit of pinky gymnastics makes it speak entirely precisely for me. Even though this last page is quite notey, I feel like it's easier to get a lot of them out. You don't need quite as many tricks as in some other places. The final trick I do on this page is simply the last trill. It tends to be a little high, that F sharp to the G just can come out a little higher than we want pitch-wise. So I finger the F sharp with the alternate fingering of right hand 2 instead of right hand 3. It brings the pitch of both the F sharp and the G that you're trilling to down a little bit. If you happen to be working on the Firebird excerpt, hopefully this will make your path through it much easier. I might be psychic because I have this strange, strong feeling that most, if not all of my college students may be working on this excerpt right now. Regardless, I hope it's given you some good ideas for how to live with difficult music and consider all your options to make it easier. Don't just beat your head against a wall trying the same thing over and over and feeling like this is too difficult. There are always tricks you can find, fingerings, the powers of your mind, and your practice tools like the metronome that can make difficult music become easy.